So let's say that someone is interested in going, whether they're at a current law firm now and they want to go solo, or they're coming out of law school and they want to go solo. What's different about being a solo today than being a solo even 10 years ago? Hey everybody, it's Steve Fretzin, and welcome back to Be That Lawyer with Fretzin, the show where you can pretty much guarantee you're going to get some great takeaways to help you be that lawyer, confident, organized, and a skilled rainmaker. Oh, it's Friday for me here in the morning, and I'm really feeling great about today. I'm actually recording 3 podcasts, and I've got to keep my brain settled, Mina, because that's a lot of podcasts in a day for me. I normally don't like to do more than 1 or 2, but I overcommitted myself. So, but you know all about overcommitting because you're like the busiest person in the world. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you for having me on this very busy Friday.
Yes.
It's an honor to be here.
Well,
Uh,
it's an honor to have you. I think we're going to have a lot of fun today, and we're going to cover a lot of ground. Let's jump in and talk about your quote of the show, which is "A life lived for others is a life worthwhile." Albert Einstein. Talk about that, and then I've got some thoughts on it as well.
this is a code I feel like, I have truly believed in. And I came across this code when I was in high school. And I think if anyone goes back to any of my essays from early days, they will see that I'm using it. But that was the idealistic version of myself. But what happened was, over the years, I started to embody this code. I started to make choices which reflects this code. And all my choices, if you think about it, it's all what I like to call a servant leadership, whether I'm running Tony Roma's or my own law firm. So it's something that I have stick with it. I've embodied it. Started with a very idealistic version to a version that I have manifested today.
Yeah. I mean, yesterday I don't know how this happened, but yesterday I had 2 meetings with 2 previous podcast guests and friends of mine. And basically they just wanted to like pick my brain for 30 minutes about coaching and could they get into it or could they do better at it and wanted to get my take on it. And I was absolutely thrilled. And I think we're a little surprised that I was willing to spend that time. But I think it goes right along with this quote of, if we can help enough other people get what they want out of life, it's going to come back to us, right? We're going to end up being in a really good place. So I really love that quote. And let's take a moment and just go into your background. So everybody, Mina Haque is the not only the CEO of Tony Roma's, which was like the biggest deal in the 70s, 80s, and now into the future. And you guys are in like 5 continents. And I remember it from when I was a kid, the ribs and all that. And you're also you run the law office of Mina Haque. So welcome to the show and tell us a little bit about your background because it's quite elaborate.
So I'm an attorney and I still practice law in addition to running Tony Roma's. One of my deal with Tony Roma's was I really love practicing law. You cannot take me out of practicing law.
Yeah.
I love interacting with my clients. And luckily, the Tony Roma's board saw that and they see my, legal knowledge and expertise as an asset to the company. That's how I started with them as well. I started as the buy-side due diligence counsel during the pandemic when the new acquirer decided to buy the entire company in a stock purchase. And from my journey from being a buy-side due diligence counsel to being an outside general counsel, in that journey, what happened was I really delved into the nitty-gritty of, operations, understanding the business, which allowed me to gain trust of the decision makers. And then from there, I became the CEO. I have a law firm in Washington, D.C. that I have been running since 2019. I do offer multiple practice areas like immigration, corporate law, franchise law. In other words, I'm a problem solver of my clients.
Yeah. And it's amazing that you're able to juggle all that. How are you positioned time wise? Are you just like a master at delegation, or how do you figure out wear all those hats?
Um, when it comes to time, I don't know whether it's an obsession or what. I always try to see in a given minute, whether it's like a 1 minute or 5 minute span, how much work can you do? how effective can you be? And what I have figured, given the time we have, there's a lot that we can do. It's all up to us. We're in control of our schedule. So multitasking has been my specialty from the get-go. I went through my, undergraduate, master's degree, my law school, while maintaining full-time jobs in the United States government and raising my family. So I think that built a very solid foundation. So compared to what I went through in my early years, I think this put me in a position where it's not that difficult because now I'm in a situation where I can also delegate work as well, both in my law firm and in Tony Roma's.
Yeah, it's like if you've run a few marathons, it's not a problem running a 5K here and there, right? Hey, everybody, I know you're enjoying this interview. To hear more just like this, check out all of the podcasts on our website. Link is in the description below.
I don't know about that, but
I might have gone too far. All right. Well, that's on me. That's on me. So one of the things I wanted to really work through with you today is all the way from law school to solo and entrepreneurship, et cetera. What are some essential skills that law school students and young professionals acquire to become successful entrepreneurs? What are the things that they need to really think about and work on outside of just the law?
yeah, that is a wonderful question. I think, law school is a place where the training that law students go through, it's pretty intense. And I think that makes the perfect training ground for people to acquire not only the legal skills, but also some other skills to be successful, whether time management, multitasking, and the whole analytical framework that law school teaches. I think that's extremely useful. And I have tried to use that framework into my business decisions as well, because it's a very structured, logical way of thinking and writing and seeing the world. So, which is one of the reasons why we have lawyers across all industries, right? Lawyers are not only limited to the legal industry. I think in the United States, most of the presidents we have had law degrees, whether it's in politics or business world or across any industry. I feel like that legal way of thinking, writing, it's extremely essential. So for students or anyone who is training right now, my suggestion is think beyond what you're working on and on a greater application, because what you're doing is an exercise and it's building that muscle memory that will come, very beneficial for future pursuits.
Yeah. I would add to what you're saying that the two things that I would suggest for law school students and young professionals coming out of the law is number one, time management. You were spot on. Like if you're not an excellent purveyor of your time and controller of your day, you're going to find that disorganization and delegation are going to just they're going to be you're going to just try to do everything yourself and it's going to be a mess. The other is networking. I feel like there's a missed opportunity to keep in touch with your undergrad law school and relationships, because those are the people that are going to be in power roles in 5 and 10 and 15 years. And I don't think lawyers in law school are really thinking strategically about who's to their left and who's to their right. Where are these people going to be? Who do I want to keep in the loop with? So I think that extra skills beyond what you learn in law school are going to be really critical to where you end up after it.
Yeah, networking is everything, right? Because you're learning to be an advocate. So what networking does is to be your own advocate, like how you can help or how you have skill sets. So sometimes what I have seen is like people are either shy or they think that they are probably bothering someone with networking inquiries. But I can speak for myself now and then when I receive inquiries from law students or young lawyers, I welcome it. And that makes the very first impression that, they found out my information, they did the research, and they reached out.
Yeah. It's really, yeah. And I find that across the board, like I'd mentioned earlier, the time that I spend with either young lawyers or people that want to get into coaching or whatever it might be. And then I've talked to a number of CEOs and GCs and people that say, yeah, if somebody reaches out to me and they want to pick my brain or they're looking for mentorship, like I've never said no to that. And I think we've got to maybe flip the mind around on how we think about what people are willing to do to help us. How does it make them feel? Maybe they're following that same philosophy of giving and helping as an important part of life, and they're willing to do it. So
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So let's say that someone is interested in going, whether they're at a current law firm now and they want to go solo, or they're coming out of law school and they want to go solo. What's different about being a solo today than being a solo even 10 years ago?
I teach a whole course. It's called Law Practice Management in American University,
Mm.
Washington College of Law, and it deals with exactly that question about being a solo. Because back when we were in law school, being a solo would come with a connotation that are you struggling to find a job, or, you know, why do you want to go on your own? But these days, law practice, because of the advent of technology, it's so different because what is the biggest challenge when people wants to go solo? It is how will I attract clients, right? I may have the best skills, but what will make me someone that clients want to work with? And I think that's where internet comes in. That's where so many platforms, building your own profile, sharing your expertise. Just yesterday, I was talking with my students, like, think of yourself that you want to be a thought leader, or you want to talk about an issue that may be useful, and do blog posts, go out there, share your insights online. And that's how you will build trust. And people will know that you are someone they can turn to when any specific problems arise that is within your expertise.
Yeah. Well, also, I think if you go back to when, pre-COVID, when you had to pay for an office and you needed to have a receptionist and you needed to have, all this overhead around you to get set up as a solo. And today, you're working out of your basement, out of your bedroom. I mean, I'm in my home right now working out of a home office that I created here that I absolutely love. And my dog is always, always snoring next to me. You can't hear it, but he's there snoring and it drives me nuts. But the idea is that, if you can keep low overhead and you can bring in some business and start getting settled with it, that's really a very much easier way to go than it was in the past. Anything else that you'd recommend for people that want to go solo and are considering that move but haven't made the decision yet?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the Washington, D.C. Bar Association has a very helpful resource in the form of a course. It's called Law Practice Management. It's
Hmm.
a great course. It's free. So members who are admitted in the D.C. Bar, they can, go and take that course. I did that before I started my firm. It was absolutely free and I learned a lot. And it's exactly to that question about the space, right? Because when you want to start your own firm, everyone's thinking, do I need to go sign a commercial lease? Because that's a huge commitment and that will take away a lot of funds and increase your overhead. So my experience with the DC Bar Association course was they gave us resources of virtual offices that are available in the district and with a very minimal fee, just $99 per month possibly. And they have their own staff receiving and sending the mails. You can also rent office space if you want to meet any clients on site. So I feel like, these type of creative structures that are around and also permissible within the regulations are helping lawyers to enter into the market. The barriers to entry is now a lot lesser than what it used to be.
Yeah. And what about technology? What's your take on what is the minimum or the right amount of technology that a new solo should have to keep things organized? Because that's always a concern.
Yeah. My suggestion would be to, always do demo of different law practice management software. Because the software companies, they do allow you to do demo so that as an end user, is that something you want? Is that something your client will be comfortable with? A law practice management software is something I would recommend. There are many companies out there. It's very helpful to keep yourself organized. It's integrated. And also, as lawyers, we have a lot of obligations towards billings, keeping funds separate from the trust account and the operating account. And these law practice management softwares help you to do that. I think that is extremely crucial. What the software can do and probably replace like 5 to 10 employees that would probably be needed to handle your client intake, billing, and case management.
Okay. And was there a mistake that you made when you kind of went out on your own or that you see other solos making that you could say, hey, don't do this. This happened to me, or I know this happens. Try to avoid it?
I'm sure there are so many,
How
you
do
know,
we, how do we
and
select one from the
right?
many?
Because every day, I always say this, like every day, it's either a lesson or a blessing, and the lesson always comes out of a mistake. So, when it comes to mistake, I would suggest there will be a urge that when you're first starting out that you need clients and you would like to work with, whoever comes through your door. But I would suggest like stick to your practice area, stick to the type of clients you want to help with because you're building a foundation, because you don't want to be in a case or situation that you find that it's hard to get out of.
Yeah.
So first thing I would always say is ask yourself all these clarifying questions. Who do I want to represent? What practice area do I want to offer? Be brutally honest with yourself because the answer lies within yourself.
Hey, everybody. Hope you're enjoying the interview. If you want to hear more about what Fretzin does, check out our services page on our website, fretzin.com. Yeah. I think what is the market saying makes the most sense. I mean, again, if you're in a small town versus a city, what opportunities are there? What practice area would you enjoy? And what do you feel like you could be really successful in? And yeah, you're going from immigration to divorce to estate planning to litigation. My father actually did that. He was like the master of the generalist, but it was back in the 60s through the 90s, and that was a different time. Today, I think there's just so much information. You have to kind of pick your spot and stick with it. And also, it helps to build your name right around a particular area versus being known for something versus being known for nothing because you're doing everything.
Right, right, absolutely. Also, from a marketing perspective, if you are operating a virtual law firm, do the search in terms of what area there is a lot of need, what will do well in terms of SEO. I've started lecturing my students about search engine optimization.
Okay.
I think that's very key. If they are operating a virtual law firm, you need to know how you can outcompete in the technological landscape.
Yeah. And that's difficult to do if you're late in the game. For example, if you're in PI in Chicago and you're trying to do SEO, that's a very different story than being in, the North Shore of Chicago, where maybe it's less competitive and you can actually start making your way through SEO, search engine optimization, to, be found at the top of Google, which is really what it's all about, is how are you being found on the internet?
Right, right.
Yeah. So, I wanted to also ask you about um, when somebody is deciding to go solo and they want to build a practice. Yes, we talked about technology. I think they're also in a position to learn all the jobs, but I think once they learn the jobs, they need to decide what they want to focus on. For example, a job is bookkeeping. I knew from day one when I started my business in 2004, I didn't want to deal with bookkeeping. I want to see the numbers. I know how to read the numbers, but I don't want to have to be in the weeds dealing with the QuickBooks and going through there. So are there things that you find need to be delegated fairly quickly?
Absolutely. I think, bookkeeping is a great example. I did the same thing. This was one area I knew that I need someone who's an expert because I will get bogged down in practicing law. And sometimes that's all I want to think about the case, right? So bookkeeping is definitely an essential function. I would suggest that people should consider delegating. And there are a lot of experts out there, a lot of great bookkeepers who don't need to be on your payroll per se. They can operate as a contractor. And there are bookkeepers who have worked with law firms specifically because law firm accounting is very different than any other business because of our obligation to safeguard our clients' property in our trust account. So I would recommend, finding a bookkeeper who specialized working with lawyers.
Yeah.
And I think that will be an asset because they understand that regulations very well. And then in terms of delegation, I would suggest having a good marketing company, depending on your marketing needs, because there's so many. You will actually, on day one, the minute you open your domain, you will be bombarded with emails from solicitors and marketing company, and everyone will start looking the same. But do your due diligence, do thorough vetting, and ensure that you have a marketing company, even if it's not a one-stop shop, but they provide solutions that will help you to grow your practice.
Yeah. And I'm not far away from writing an article. It's already queued up for this weekend on how lawyers need to make decisions. I think sometimes, it can just be that analysis paralysis and perfectionist attorney and things that just stall getting things done. So I'm going to come up and share. This is like just 4 steps to get a decision made on something that you can feel in your gut and you can know in your brain are the right decisions to make. And the big one that I want to share is just identifying, again, a company or an individual VA or something to delegate to your social media. Maybe it's your administrative tasks, the things that are $15, $20 an hour that you find yourself doing when you should be billing out at, 300 to 600, and you're doing these medial tasks that are taking up half your day. And you should be spending your time building business and
Right.
doing the work that you can bring in, and maybe managing a couple small, a couple of VAs or some small group. That's your job. Like everything else I find is just going to draw you in and draw you down into that lower wage type of situation.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I feel like it's a journey for entrepreneurs because, especially as lawyers, the first thing you want to do is get clients, right? And then once you start getting clients, the revenue starts flowing in. You want to ensure that how you can either reinvest that revenue back into your firm or how much of it can you actually save without expending it. And that's where things get tricky. I think that's where lawyers try to wear multiple hats. And that's a point where a decision needs to be made. Okay, some of the tasks may be better handled by a VA, by a bookkeeper, because it's all about time. Because what we're doing is we're in a service industry, so we're selling our time. If we
Mhm.
free up our time doing those menial tasks, then we will be able to devote those time for probably client acquisition and working on the legal matters.
Right. Right. So let's transition and sort of wrap up in the next couple minutes on this subject I want to hit you up on, because you're a lawyer, but you're also a pretty severe, serious entrepreneur. Like, to be the CEO of Tony Roma's while you're running your firm, that's, for some people that would be overwhelming. For other people, that would be a dream come true. Like, you've pursuing the entrepreneurial dream. And I know that entrepreneurialism isn't for everybody, but what's the transition for lawyers that see the law as a gateway to being an entrepreneur?
It will go back to that analytical framework, that thought process, but it also goes to a great point you brought, which is like overthinking, that analysis paralysis, like, right? You need to fight that urge all the time because when you're an entrepreneur, I think every entrepreneur would say that there is a leap of faith that you have to take. And as a lawyer, while we are so trained to always weighing the pros and cons, we need to take that leap of faith to put us in the path of entrepreneurship.
Yeah. And how does somebody transition from they've been working in law for 5 years and deciding, like, okay, I mean, obviously there's a lot of different ways we can go here, but just realizing, like, hey, I know the law, I practice law, I enjoy that part of it. Maybe I've even built a small book of business, but ultimately I think my skills would be better suited for a company, not to be in-house, but to actually be a part in helping run that company. What's the transition there?
I think you need to think out of the box because day to day you have built an expertise. When we work in like any cases, we try to learn the case. But what we are also learning or taking away are those skill sets. I think we can be creative. And that's how I think there's just so many opportunities now. For example, I'm going to use AI. Lawyers solve so many problems. If we start thinking, okay, I just solved this problem. How can I make it easier for 10 other people? Can I develop, AI or like a software? And these days it's getting easier. Like you don't need to know the coding per se. You can hire someone, you can delegate, you can even go and ask Chat GPT to write a program. So I think putting that creative hat is extremely important because I think that's where it's the gateway to opportunities.
Yeah, I think you're right. There's a lot of people that solve a problem for themselves or for their clients and then realize, hey, this is actually like a new legal tech that I just created or that I just conceived, and I can now do it. And that's how I think a lot of these legal tech companies pop up. It's because they figured something out and built the mousetrap, and now they can start sharing it with others and making that a secondary business. Which I like that idea, by the way, of having another bucket, right? So like you've got the law practice, but then you've got this side hustle, and side hustles have been going on forever, but I think in the last 10 years even more so.
And the way I see it is, yes, it's good for you. It gives you, multiple income streams, but it's also good for the people. It goes back to that quote, a life lived for others is a life worthwhile,
Hmm.
because you're multiplying the benefit by making your creativity, your skill sets available to so many others.
Yeah. Yeah, agreed. So let's wrap up with one final tip that you would give to people that either want to be, and by the way, when you go out and you're solo, you're an entrepreneur, right? That's not something that all lawyers are doing. Some are in-house and some are going to stay at a firm. And I still consider lawyers at firms sort of entrepreneurial. They may not realize it, but they have to build their book under the umbrella of that firm. But solos are even more entrepreneurial. And then the lawyers that decide to go out and build a separate, different type of business. One final tip that you would give them to be successful.
One final tip would be like, show your value to your client. Sometimes it may be outside the scope of the service, but go above and beyond and try to have that servant leadership mindset, because the right client will recognize your talent and you may find yourself in the right place.
Yeah. I think being a great lawyer is sort of where the bar is set. And then there's everything else that you could do for your clients and do to help others is where the bar needs to be set, or where people need to be
Right.
thinking. And I don't know that many are, but I think the ones that are getting ahead more quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. Because, the way the industry has evolved, if you just think in terms of like the billable hours, it's like a technicality, right? It's like a very robotic way of rendering legal services. Client wants a little bit more because they want an advocate. They want someone who's protecting their interest. So just going out there, helping the client, don't just think when an acquisition comes to your table that you're supposed to close and do like legal due diligence. If you find something operationally that's wrong or an area of improvement, don't be shy to suggest it. The right
Yeah.
client will recognize it.
Yeah. And little things you do to help your clients and others in the industry or other friends of yours, you don't realize the impact that it can have. Helping somebody get a new job, helping
Right.
somebody's kid get into school, helping find someone an assistant GC that's going to make their life easier. These are all things that we need to be thinking about and doing in addition to being great at what we do as a lawyer or in a business. Let's wrap up though, Mina, with our game-changing book. And I don't think this one has come up on the show before, so I'm excited to hear what your thoughts are. But likable badass, that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, Dr. Allison Fraggle. She's a fellow Chief member. I'm part of Chief, and that's where I came across her book. And I just finished reading it. It's so beautifully written. It gives a matrix of how a leadership should be, how you should think of yourself. And one of the takeaway was to be assertive and warm,
Mm,
because it's not only you need to be assertive as a leader, we also need to be warm so that everyone we work with, they find us approachable. So that was my biggest takeaway. In order to be a likable badass, you have to be assertive and warm.
yeah, assertive and warm at the same time. I love that. Well, thank you so much. Let's take a second and just thank our wonderful sponsors. Of course, we've got Rankings.io and PimCon coming up. Helping personal injury attorneys really take things to the next level. I just heard Chris Dreyer on another podcast. He's just absolutely brilliant. His background is really cool, and he's sort of gamified. I think he's just a brilliant guy. And listening to his story about the way he was involved in poker and sports, and just when he goes in on something, he goes all in. And of course, check out my friend Sonia on the Law Her podcast. That might be good for you, Mina. Law Her podcast. She's brilliant, and it's really about helping women, inspire women to be their best selves in the legal profession. Mina, if people want to get in touch with you, they want to learn more about you and what you're doing at Tony Roma's or for your own firm, what are the best ways for them to reach you?
They can send me an email. My email is mina@attorneymina.com. So please feel free to reach out.
Yeah, and we'll make sure we have that in the show notes. But thank you so much for coming on, sharing your wisdom. I feel like we covered a lot of ground in a short amount of time, and it was just an absolute pleasure having you. Hey, everybody, I hope you're enjoying this fabulous interview. If you want to check out more about what Fretzin does every day to help you be that lawyer, confident, organized, and a skilled rainmaker, please check out our services page on our website. Just go to the website, check it out. I know you'll enjoy it. Thanks.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you so much.
Yeah. And thank you, everybody, for spending some time with me tonight today on the Be That Lawyer with Fretzin podcast. Look, take what you can. We've got 2 shows every week. I've got videos up on YouTube. I think 650 videos if you type Steve Fretzin into YouTube. 4 books, 5th one coming out. All this great stuff happening, and it's all to help you really be that lawyer, confident, organized, and a skilled rainmaker. Thanks, everybody. Take care. Be safe. Be well. We'll talk again soon.